Are you tired of the quick fixes that promise transformation, but leave you feeling more disconnected from your body than ever? Welcome to the Beyond Medicine Humanized Care for Women of Influence, where we go deeper than those surface level solutions. I'm Dr. Maria, a functional integrative physician specializing in women's health, metabolic dysfunction, and hormone balance. Here, we will uncover the root causes of insulin resistance, PCOS, thyroid, and adrenal issues. And we will explore how trauma, stress, and anxiety impact your well being. Because your body is not a microwave, it deserves personalized, compassionate care that honors its complexity. So let's embark on a journey to reclaim your health one conversation at a time. And today with me, I have Coach Jen. She is the founder of Lift and Love Well here in the Houston area. So welcome, Coach Jen. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you like to do, and most of all, why is it that you are in this journey of health and wellness?
Hi, thank you, Dr. Maria, for having me here this evening. And I am, as she said, Jen Rivas. I have been passionate about fitness and wellness since probably childhood. It has its ebbs and flow with that. I've been on my own journey and still on my own journey to this day. But that drove me to go to school for kinesiology, concentrating in wellness management. Really just passionate about the human body and the way it moves. And then I also pursued other certifications along with that from personal training, group fitness instructor, and also most recently, pregnancy and postpartum exercise specialist. So that's a little bit more on the educational side. But I'm a wife and a mom of just one. So I'm a newer mom. She's only two. So I'm still navigating motherhood and wellness as well, and what that looks like, and taking care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And then my current health and wellness journey has been just super fun. I would say the word I would call it adaptable. Since the moment I've had my daughter, I thought I was gonna jump in the gym real quickly, but I was very humble. My recovery took a little bit longer. And I just really learned more recently just how you can still adapt. Fitness is adaptable, and that time in my life, and especially the beginning postpartum, all I could do was really walk, lots of
Mm.
walking. And I love walking to this day. If I can walk every day, I will. But just walking and then giving myself the grace and steadiness and going back to the gym, getting back into the groove of things. And so now, 2 years later, continuing now, I've been doing strength training, continuing the walking. So that's just currently my health and wellness journey, and just also learning how to nurture my hormones and just the stage of life that I'm in as well. So that's currently where I'm at with my health and journey.
Yes, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that and for being vulnerable. Sometimes
Uh,
people feel that too much of a personal story is like too personal. So I want to come back to a couple of things. So one, you said just one baby, just one child. I think that is a full-time job.
yeah.
Absolutely. Taking care of somebody else and then taking
Mhm.
care of yourself. So it's not that it's just one. So for those ladies that are listening to us, that they're moms, absolutely the amount of work increases with the amount of kids.
Yes.
And even if you only have one child, that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
necessarily your journey is going to be easier. And I love that you said adaptable. And the reason that I love this word is because we all have different stages of life. When
Mhm.
I was in residency and fellowship,
Yeah.
I was completely by myself and I didn't have to take care of like my pets, which I adore. But then also at the same time, I was in a place where the weather was a little bit more smoother. So I did a lot of running. I did a lot of biking, like long distance, and it was really easy on my body. But for example, now I live in Texas and with the coming kids, I don't want to be outside. So this adapting, I think that is important to mention because one, that will keep us healthy, it can keep us active, but then
Mhm.
also it can provide you with that grace and compassion that you mentioned where perhaps it's not going to look the same throughout your lifetime, but that doesn't mean that if things evolve, it's necessarily because something is broken and something's to be fixed. And a lot of the times, especially I find that this is true more for women, but now that I think about it, I think also for male patients where once they start to hit an age, usually like mid-30s to early
Mhm.
40s, they start to say, when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 20s. And there's a lot that has changed from the 20s to the 30s. And it's just acknowledging that with those changes, there will be changes on how you take care of your body. So I love that word, adaptable.
Yeah. Been my banner.
Yeah,
Honestly, since college too. I agree. Like just life looks different and there's something beautiful about that. And I love that you said there's something about when we enter in our 30s and 40s, we think too much. In my 20s, I used to do this. And something I like to say, I also coach at a women's gym and I always like to encourage the ladies like, hey, think about like right now, like what your body can do and what you're able to do and how do you want to challenge it. And I love that you mentioned that because sometimes we think too much about our glory days, but our glory days can be even today. Yeah.
absolutely. Glory days at any age of your life.
Yeah.
That does not take beauty out of it. So, today we're going to be talking about the role of community. And when we're talking about community, we're talking about family, friends, and maybe even extending that group of people that will provide some sort of support, encouragement in our health and wellness journey. So, when you think about why this is important, right? To have these people that can provide us some sort of support. Why would you say to the ladies listening to us that this is something important to have within their circle, whether it is
Mhm.
friends, family, or something as simple as, well, I don't feel very motivated to exercise. But if I go to a group fitness class where
Mhm.
there's always the same lady that I see, and I don't know, afterwards we grab coffee or tea or dinner together, that by itself become the reason. Tell us a little bit about why is it that this is important?
Man, I see this firsthand where I coach at. It's called Delta Life Fitness. It's in Friendswood. And I literally see this. I've been there. I took a little break during when I had my daughter, but I think 5 years now, 6 years, past 5, 6 years, I have watched this firsthand, and it's such a beautiful thing. Family support is super important. The people that you live with, whether it's roommates, your spouse, or friends, or whoever, I think it's just super important to have. That has so much value, but not everybody always necessarily has that. And so I think that's where the benefits of group fitness classes, or I know there's running clubs now, there's just so many different classes out there where you can connect with people. I just see so much value in it because one, you're going into a class and typically there's a coach, instructor led. So you have a professional in there as well, making sure you're getting the right workout. But I think what's even so beautiful is sees the camaraderie in a class where watch with my own eyes ladies who didn't know each other,
Mm,
and next thing you know, they are we call them like base mates. Like those are your crew. That is your strong. They're like a gym family. They grab brunch after. It starts becoming just this beautiful relationship where even today I had a member tell me how her and 2 other ladies are in a group text, and she said, because this is during their break, they will still hold each other accountable, even though someone's traveling. Hey, did you get to move your body? And so, like, they create these own relationships by themselves. And because they see each other the same time, same people. Usually they have like their spot that they like to pick. And she said, I'm pushing myself. We challenge each other even more. We grab heavier weights, or we try to stay consistent with our classes or movement if we're on vacation. And so it's just, we are made for relationships. And I think there's always so much value with, I believe, not just think, I believe that there's so much value when you have someone holding you accountable with your fitness. As is, it's, I think it's super important to find that gym buddy, find that workout class. Yeah. So I see it firsthand. So and it's just such a beautiful thing. I'm super passionate about it.
Yes, and I completely agree. When I was doing my fellowship up at Providence, there was a yoga studio. Walking down, I lived in an apartment complex. So I would go down, cross the street. There was the yoga studio there. So it was very easy for me to do yoga. I love that on Friday evenings. And since I moved to Houston, I have been looking for this. I just feel that the culture is a little bit different. But they had
Mhm.
on Friday evening a community yoga class. One, it was donation based. So when you are a resident and a fellow, you are very much limited compared to
Yeah.
when you're a physician. So it was donation based. And I think that at that time, the minimum was $10. And of course, we're talking about 10 years ago. But one of the things that I liked was that there was this group of, as you said, ladies that we would all go. And then we would cross the street, and there was this Oriental restaurant. Don't ask me the name. And again, the culture being a little bit different, we were
Yeah.
all sweaty from our yoga class because
Mhm.
usually it was not a heated yoga studio, but for some reason, I can just remember that at least
Yeah.
I sweat so bad. So it was probably some type of like power yoga or something that made me sweat a lot. But then we would cross and we would sit and we would have dinner. And I would have usually this warm, yummy meal with
Mhm.
people. And for me, that was like such a big highlight of the week. So I had been working hard. And then it was a really good transition to go
Mhm.
into my weekend because I was like, relax. I had a good meal and I would literally just go up to my apartment and I was like so ready for bed. It served in such a beautiful way. And I always you do some form of movement. But for me, the highlight was like the going after the yoga class to eat, to talk, to just know what was going on in their lives.
Mhm.
Even if we're not talking about health, or even if we were not talking
Yeah.
about fitness. And I think that's really important because we all know that studies have shown that loneliness has increased in the population, and that loneliness has an effect on our health, just
Mhm.
as smoking cigarettes. So for those people that perhaps are thinking, so I can think of two things that perhaps people are thinking when it comes to this. One, they might be thinking, I can just do it at home by
Mhm.
myself. Why would I even consider getting into a gym? And what the reasons might be caused, but then also for some people, it might just be easier to go down the stairs or wake up and put their yoga mats and do whatever movement it is that they're going to be doing, go out their door, go for a run. So, for people that might be thinking like that, what are some, again, reasons that you would
Mhm.
tell them, yes, that maybe has certain advantage, and perhaps, yes, that has a place, but there is a benefit of having again, some support on your health and wellness journey.
Yeah. So obviously, I know I've gone through seasons where I'm like, I have to work out at home. There's some weeks where my daughter gets sick and I can't really make it to the gym. I adapt, going back to that word adapt. And so I have to work out at home. Even if someone does, let's say, have to like, hey, this is like my only option. I think social health, that wellness like circle, I think of that pie part, like that section where social health is part of our health and wellness. If I think someone does have that already in their lives where they're being connected with other people and but if they have certain fitness and health goals, I think there's still so much fruit when it comes to having a group of friends or even just one friend where maybe you both are holding each other accountable. Maybe you're taking the same at home workouts and you're still like it, but it takes extra effort, I believe, especially if you're both doing it by yourselves. So not why not come together and do it together? And I get it. There are times in our lives where that just is our only option at the moment, but I still say it making and building relationship takes extra work. It takes risk as well, but I truly have seen in my personal health journey as well, when I have that accountability, when I have that friend where I'm saying, hey, like my goal is to work out 3 times this week. Can you ask me by the end of the week or midweek how I'm doing? And at the end of the day, I think there's just, like you said, there's this loneliness, especially, I know we always talk about COVID, but I really think that kind of like escalated the loneliness things too, where people just got comfortable things at home and they were beneficial at the time. But I think building that relationship it is worth it. And I know I've seen fruit working out at home and not just do it myself, but for how long? When
Right.
so I don't know if that makes sense, but I think still, even if you have to do it at home, I really believe still try to build a relationship somehow in a circle where you're holding each other accountable. But I still do think going to a gym and being around people and seeing the same person. And I go to the Y and I get to see also people that they have probably established relationships at the gym and not just even at a group fitness class. So hope that answered that question. But
Yeah, no. So you mentioned a couple of things, which is one, accountability, right? It
yeah,
would provide that accountability that we know that when people have somebody that they feel that they're accountable to, they tend to follow through just because of that. The other thing that you mentioned was the challenge that this other person, whether it is your instructor or a friend or a family member, can provide. And I remember when I was down in what we call the valley, I went to this, I loved it. It was like a small gym studio. And we would do TRX combined with weights. And I love TRX. Is one of the other things that I haven't found in Houston yet. So it was not only that I love the workout, but one of the things that the instructor would specifically she did at the beginning was that she realized that physically I had the capacity to not go for the 20s. She would tell me, like, you could do the 60s, right? And it was working with her and working in that setting where then even the guys were like, yeah, you can do the 60s, right? And it was not only a female voices, having also male voices that were like, you're strong, right? Like,
yeah,
you can do the same weight that I do.
yeah,
That's one of the things that helped me realize, oh, I could do this. I'm strong.
mhm,
And I feel that especially for females, sometimes we stay comfortable, especially when it comes to weights. And I know that this
yeah,
is not the topic, but when it comes to weight, we just
mhm,
stay in this comfort zone of the 5 to 10 pounds. And
yeah,
and we think that if we increase the weight, we're going to bulk up or we're going to get
mhm,
injured. That's not for us, right? And we never challenge ourselves in that way. So I think that it's important that you're saying it will
yeah,
provide you with that challenge while also having the guidance.
yeah,
And one of the things that I also want to mention is that if you say going to the gym is going to cost me money, or going to a studio, or going to whatever is going to cost you money, especially now that I'm here in Houston, there are places that you have. free yoga classes. In Memorial Park, there is a couple of groups that do walks, that do hikes, and being part of these communities is completely free. And
Yeah.
if you start to go, you'll start to see the same people and you'll do friendships
Yeah.
that, in my case, have not only been about they cheer me when I did the chocolate run this year, but it is also then you start to create a community that, hey, when life gets tough, are you going to call? And I think that's important so that we think of community in this more broader sense. And we know that
Yeah.
when life gets tough, maybe, yes, lifting the weights in the gym helps you with the stress and the anger.
Mm.
But also, when life gets tough, those relationships can nourish perhaps that more soul care, spiritual care,
Yeah.
emotional care. So, when you see this from a holistic perspective, where yes, having people that perhaps are learning to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and you're taking cooking classes together, or you're walking to the farmer's market together, you are going to the gym or whatever class you want to together. So that's all addresses like the physical component. But then
Yeah.
when we think about community, what role can you see community playing in the care of more our soul and who we are?
I went through it personally. I think I was 21. Yeah, I was 21. And at that time in my life, I wasn't making some great choices. I was going to the gym, I was
Mm,
working out. So physically, I was doing all the right things. But I had an old high school friend. She was a few grades older than me. And I connected. Long story short, we connected, reconnected. And she said, "Hey, can I go run with you and walk? And then we can go to the gym together." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And she would just share just like the way, like, just her life was changing in such a positive
mm,
way. And at that time in my life, I think this positive person, but inside I felt so just lost and
mm,
confused about a lot of things. And I was losing my own faith. And I was just going through so many things, emotional roller coaster inside that I didn't have the right people at that time to process with. And so this relationship began with us moving our bodies together, working out, her sharing her stories and just testimonies in her life. And I would just listen and I would just feel encouraged. And so fast forward, that relationship was a reason that seeds were planted in my life that where my faith completely radically changed, where I could say I stand today just positively being impacted and influenced by that relationship. But that is something that why I believe, man, like getting somebody linking arms and moving your body together, it's beyond just the physical. You never know what that relationship can do to your life. And so with that being said, also, I mean, I see it all the time. Even as an instructor at a group fitness class, at the end, we'll chit chat, the ladies will talk, and I'll bring up like something about motherhood that, man, I'm struggling with this. And somebody else, oh, they'll give me tips and tricks. And there's just something beautiful where you can start sharing. I have this going on in my life, and it could be something heavy and hard. And you just never know what person at that table or at that yoga mat that you're sharing with can pour something into you where you needed that. And so even going back, I was thinking if you're working out at home, it's great. But if you, because right, life brings lots of curveballs and storms and all different things. And I believe that when we're down, it's hard to get back up. Two is always better than one. And sometimes you just need somebody to reach out their hand and get you out. And so I think that's why it's just so important to build those relationships. And again, these classes, group fitness classes you can go to, and even going back to you said, there's so many free now. I think there's just this cool movement going on where there's just so many free clubs and some are donation based. I say go for it. And if you've been jumping around and you're still trying to find the right place, you will. I really think we all find our right place and find the right people you're wanting to connect with. But that's kind of what I think is there's just so much benefits. I've been impacted at that time in my life till this day. I'm such a believer to link arms with the right people, with the right support, because you never know when you'll need them, when you're down.
Yes. And not only when you're down, I also feel that it's good to have people to just celebrate life with.
Yes. Yeah.
Celebrate those small little things, or maybe you were working on a goal. I celebrate, for example, my new patients with my friends, those small goals
Yeah.
of, hey, I completed my chocolate run.
Mhm.
So for me, I was very focused on I wanted to complete it because it had been years since I had done a long run. So celebrating those like milestones that
Yes.
you achieve that can go beyond milestones perhaps related to your health, but milestones of I have this goal and I'm achieving it.
Yeah.
Somebody that you can even say, we're going to go all on vacation together, especially for
Mhm.
those people that perhaps do not have family. So those friends can become your camping buddies if that's what you like to do.
Yeah.
It provides a lot more from the way that I did, a lot more than the accountability, the challenge. Yes, the people to do things with, but I also see that community helps you even troubleshoot. And sometimes we're like up here in our head and our head or in our head. And just talking with somebody helps you see life from a different perspective. So this year, I'm not running them. Although that's one of the things that I want to restart to do. But last year, I did a lot of group medical visits
Mm.
where the ladies would come together and we would sit down and we would just troubleshoot, right? The challenges, the obstacles. And they loved it. They
Mhm.
actually wanted to continue there. And they loved it the more ladies there were.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons was because they didn't feel alone in this sense where it is, oh, you also struggle with that. Oh,
Mhm.
you also don't like cooking. Oh,
Mhm.
you feel like I feel in this
Yeah.
area. And the community provided them with attunement. It provided you are being seen. And yes, you are not alone. People might be going to the gym, but maybe they just don't love it, or other feelings that we have. You are
Mhm.
also going through that. And then
Yeah.
that also gets that sense of loneliness. It kind of like it lifts up.
Yes. Absolutely. There's this story in the Bible in Exodus that it's where Lift in Love, the name of my business, came from. Is it's about when Moses, the Israelites were fighting with the Amalek. I can never say the names, but they were in a battle, and Moses had to hold a staff overhead, and they will win. And then when his hands were growing tired, they would lose. And so two people came alongside him, Aaron and Hur, and it said they put a rock underneath him to sit down, and they lifted his arms with him, and they all won. So at the end of the day, chapter 17, but that's where that lift and love well came from, because I believe that it's super important to surround yourself with people that will lift you up when you're growing tired. And to everybody can also celebrate like the battle everybody won. So it was something that not only it was a celebration for Moses, but it was for everybody. It was like a partnership, and that's where that name comes from. And I'm always saying, not only you surround yourself to people to lift you up, but also you be the person to love well and lift others. And so it's a two-way thing. And not that you owe me or I owe you, but more just it's a natural as humans, we want to see. I really believe we want to see people thrive. And just like the class that you were in, people are like, you can lift that heavier weight. They wanted to see you lift heavier because they knew you can do it, and they wanted to celebrate with you. Again, I see that all the time at these classes that I teach, and I've seen it in different settings and events where people just get so excited for one another. And sometimes we think that's not the case, but for the most part is the other spectrum where people want to see you win.
Yes. And I think that we need that. I think that
Mm,
with so much going on in this world
mm,
and so much of the negativity that sometimes we can receive from culture, the news, even social media, having then the positive that is going to keep your mind and your thoughts healthy. And again, this is not necessarily the topic, but we know that people that engage more in social media, that are scrolling, posting all the
mm,
time, we actually know that studies have shown that you might
mm,
think that they have a better life or better social connection, but what we actually know is that is detrimental to
yeah.
emotional well-being. So again, creating those like more flesh and blood relationships
Mm,
that used to be the way that people would relate really has a lot of benefits for our overall health.
absolutely.
Yes.
Mm,
So definitely, I don't think that I had heard it. So definitely thank you for sharing where you got kind of like the idea or the concept that I'm going to name my business Lift and Love Well. We need to lift each other up, even if we don't do it perfect, because sometimes we
yeah.
won't. But
Yeah.
again, there comes the grace and the compassion and the growing in relationships and the forgiving and
Mm,
all of these other things that just come with
yeah.
relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, as we're coming towards the end and towards the close, and you think about relationships, community,
Mm,
health, wellness, what are some final words that you want to leave people with that you say, well, I haven't said this and I want people to go with this message, or perhaps you already did, but you want to
mhm.
emphasize it? What is it that you want people to know that is right there in your heart about these four words or concepts?
Well, I believe we were created for relationships. I believe in God and I believe that He created us to have family. And I really believe that there's someone out there that is waiting to be lifted and loved well by you. And also, you never know who in your life can come in and be that person for you. And going to that group fitness class that seems fun, has great music. Yes, go for it. You have fitness goals. But I really think as you go to a class, don't be afraid to introduce yourself to someone next to you that, especially someone that you see pretty consistently going to that class or whatever it is.
Mm.
At the end of the day, I really think you're going to walk out more benefits, not just the physical fitness, but the emotional, mental, soul care, all those things. Because again, we're meant for that. And I think that's really it that I would share is don't be afraid to go. I know a lot of times people are hesitant also to go to some kind of class setting, community, because maybe there has been hurt in the past. And but I just encourage you to try again and see what's out there. I can't think of the names of, there's a couple people I follow that are in the Houston area that offer, like next week, somebody's hosting a run in the Highland Village, the Heights area. And so there's things out there that people want to invite people to move their bodies with others. And but those are like my last words that I just wanted to say that you will definitely reap, you will see fruit beyond the physical if you build those strong relationships.
Yes. And as you said, sometimes it takes trial and error to finding your people. Just that sometimes it takes trial and error. I find that this is also true, like for exercise and fitness. You might go to a class, you like it, you don't like it. You might like running, you might like walking, hiking. And so just as sometimes you're just exploring where is it that I want to go to, what is it that I want to do, the same is with people and with relationships. You will come to this point where you do find your people. And I was almost laughing because I'm an introvert. When
Mhm.
I am in a place where I do not know anybody, I am not talking with anybody. And you are like, go and introduce yourself to the lady that you have always been seeing in your
Yeah.
class. And that is, for me, that's like, oh my God, I probably need to do that more often because the introverted in me just stays in. And in a way, that, as you said, can keep you from giving and from receiving from relationships sometimes. And I'm slowly getting better at that.
Yeah.
But the introverted in me is it's like I need to talk to myself. So if you are an introverted, just as you are driving towards your class or the gym or the activity, whatever it is, just tell yourself it's going to be it's just
Yeah.
going to be okay. Yeah, no shame in that. And then the other thing that you mentioned was we all need family. And I think that's important to hear. And the only thing that I want to add to that, when we're talking about family, it might not necessarily be that everybody needs to, for example, get married and have kids.
Mhm.
Sometimes that cannot happen. Sometimes there's fertility issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do get married and then you lose your spouse, or your spouse decides not to be in the relationship anymore. When we're talking about family, we're talking about that community, again, that family that you are creating. That besides seeing you for 1 hour once a week in the gym, or at the farmer's market once a month, I'm going to start to see you and invite you and grab a coffee or tea, or even going to go and visit you in your home. And we're going to do some sourdough bread together and then eat some vegetable pizza. Yeah, things that I love. So those are the things that we're talking about when we talk about
Yeah.
family, that I think that
Mhm.
is really important for those listeners that perhaps do not have that biological circle. This is the circle that we're talking about, that we
Yeah.
all have independently of if we have kids or not, the stage of life that we are in, and independently of if we have a partner or not in this life.
And I like to add, I'm originally from Maryland, so I moved to Houston 11 years ago. And that was one of my biggest, because I had my family, I had my community, and I up and went to a big city. I went from a small town to a big city, Houston. And that was something I will say, till this day, I tell people like, fight for community because I mean, that's what I did. I knew I cannot be in this big city by myself. And because I felt so scared as well, just for safety things too. But I knew like I need to get plugged in. And that's something that I was very prayerful about, very also discerning. And from where that time it was hard to go and plug myself in a gym, being college, working crazy hours, but I still was like, I'm gonna plug myself into healthy communities because I knew I needed that. I knew as a young adult at that time, I needed that because I understood just the importance of having those relationships. So even if you're brand new to Houston, if you're in the city, if you're listening, there's so many. That's what I would say is beautiful about Houston. There's just so much community opportunities. You got to find them. You got to find your way. I hear friends who join a volleyball team that they don't know anybody, and people from all over the world are part of that volleyball team. So, anyways, I wanted to share that. I understand where I went from one place to a place where I didn't have anybody, and I'm super thankful for just the community that I'm in right now. Yeah.
Yes. And I completely agree. Even that I'm not recommending that you spend hours on social media, but using something as Facebook groups to find activities that you like to do and where they are. Meetups is another one that's also really good, that you can find people with the same interests in some activities. And then the other thing that I would say is there's almost for if you think about health, I know that there are groups that are into doing potlucks and bringing
I
healthy
love that.
food where
That's
you
cool.
can share recipes. I know that there is parks that you can go and walk, hike, run, yoga together. And if you think that there isn't anything to address your emotional health, believe it or not, there is also a lot of support groups. There's book clubs, and I find that the book clubs it can be also a way of not only connecting but providing that emotional more type of support. And then definitely, independently of what your faith is, I definitely also believe that having that in your life and finding the place where your higher power, which for I know that Koshan is God as well as for me. We come from a Christian background, but even if that is not your belief or your faith, you can find the spiritual connection and continue to grow and nurture yourself in that area. So I really feel that I agree. You can find groups to nourish your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So tell us anything else that you want to leave our listeners with. And then for those people that have listened to our conversation and they want to get connected with you because they want to see how is it that this lady works, takes care of her child, and that also has time for relationships.
Definitely. Yeah.
How can they get connected with you? And then any other final words of wisdom that you want to leave us with?
I host community walks. Summertime, we gotta play it by ear in Houston because it can get a little too hot. But for the most part, I am trying to stay as consistent as possible hosting community walks. I also try to do different wellness events. So the way to stay connected and know what's the next wellness event, I try to collaborate with other health and wellness professionals. Me and Dr. Maria, we did one together and it was awesome. Want to do that again. But you can find me on Instagram at Lift and Love. And then you can subscribe to my newsletter. There's usually a link right there in my bio. And I suggest to subscribe to the newsletter because you'll be the first to know. I'd love for you to attend a wellness event so we can get to know each other. I do offer one-on-one coaching. I do virtual coaching as well for wellness coaching or custom programming in your fitness if you're looking for that. But I love to connect in person at some community events. That is my favorite way to meet people. Dr. Maria and I met each other through a networking community event, and here we are, friends.
Yes. And we didn't even know that we were going to the same church together.
No. So you just never know who you'll meet. Yeah. And I think it's super, even that can be another topic for another day, but just if you have a small business, I highly suggest to go to networking events because again, you're walking with people who might have the same questions, doubts, and circumstances.
Struggles, or people to
Yeah.
celebrate with, right? It
Um,
doesn't need to be necessarily all about the negative. So
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. I will definitely, for our listeners,
Mhm.
I will put on the show notes the Instagram handle and information so that you can connect with Coach Jen, whether it is to work with her on a one-to-one or if you just want to say, it sounds like she has this thing about community pretty good. Let me start by going with one of her walks because I'm one of those introverts that doesn't talk to anybody. And maybe she will start talking to me. And then that anxiety that sometimes we can have will be reduced. So thank you, Coach Jen, for being here with me tonight. And thank you for our listeners. Until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful summer. Bye.
I thank you, Dr. Maria.
Yes.